Yep. Good evening, everyone. So, last session we learned transporting data in one real world application I showed you. So, we discussed about how do we transport data from child to parent. So, we learned controlled components and context API and custom events also we learned. These three concepts we learned. So, context API for transporting data without using props drilling. Without prop drilling, how we transport data. Custom event we used for transporting data from child to parent. In this one weather app example I showed you already. One more example we will see with both concept. Parent to child and child to parent, how works. One example we will learn. So we will create one interface, product details and a search. A small example I will show you. Already we designed that interface using one component. Yeah, we created this fake store, everything in one component, run dev. Yeah, this we designed in one component. So I hope this fake store API may not be currently running. It has some issue. So the API server is currently down. So we will try it after it is up, because you can see the official website. Sometimes for few minutes or time, their server may be down. It's not responding. So we will leave. Once it is ready, we will use it. So we can handle the data and use. But one small interaction we have to create. So here, to create such interactions and manipulations, one more topic we are going to see until it is ready. What is that is we are going to learn today about how to use forms. So we are going to learn about React forms, how to deal with the React forms. We'll see the concept of form. After understanding these forms, we will learn how to create a complete CRUD operations example. That means read, insert, update, delete, everything how we can use. Actually, what is the problem with React form is, in React.js, you can design a form and you can write validation for the form. Generally, you know, form is used for designing a UI from where user can interact with data. Reading, inserting, updating, deleting, everything we can do. In JavaScript, collecting data from form, interacting is very simple because it provides all DOM methods. Get element by ID you can use. But in React.js, it is difficult. In React.js, creating a form, interacting, collecting the data. Now in React 19, they made little bit better, but not easy. It's lengthy process. For example, you already saw the concept till now. Suppose we have 5 fields in a form. We need to bind some data into the fields and we need to collect the data from 5. Then every field requires on change because two-way binding can work only with the on change. If there are 10 fields, all 10 fields require on change, collect all the data and use. To overcome these problems, majority of React projects uses third-party service. By using a third-party service, we can easily design form, easily validate the forms, and we can easily interact with them. I will show you the original problem and we will see how to use different third party. See the actual problem. So we will create one interaction here with form. I will create form demo. So form demo.jsx. So export function form demo and it will return a simple form. So we are using a form. Just let's put a heading register user and we create one form. In that we are having some data, some username and it is having a text box. Similarly, we have some age, email like this, some age and we are having some mobile. Just few details. I'm select city or your city. And here let's put some drop down. Later I will show you other details also, other elements also. Option, select city. Okay. So we need to design this form and let's put a button, some register and let's keep in the startup. So form demo is the startup. So we have a simple registration form. Now what is our job is collect data from the form and submit to server. Later we will save on database and all. Everything we will design. We will create local servers and all. So how do we collect data in JavaScript? In JavaScript, you need 3 DOM methods: get username, get age, and get city. We store in one object and we collect and we use it. Here, how do we collect data from all these 3 elements? Let's see. So actually, what we have to do is we need to create constant. We need 3 references. One is uname. This is set username is equal to use state. It is a string. Next, we are having age, set age, use state, and it is having a number. And we are having city and set city is equal to use state and it's also a string. Okay, now I need to collect the data from all the 3. Because we don't have any DOM methods, we need 3 events now. So one is handle name change. On name change, what generally we do, we have to collect and set username e dot target dot value. We cannot use get element by id and all here. So another function handle what age change and set age e dot target dot value. So we have another one handle city change and we need set city e dot target dot value. We need to submit function handle register click. On register click, I will just use console log and I will provide these details like username. For example, I want to submit one object. So we need to create one object. This object will have a key username and the key value comes from what is it? User uname. It will come from uname. I'll directly use uname. Next age will come from age. City will come from city. We are sending like an object. Now where to bind them, what we have to do. This text box should use on change, handle name change, on change, handle. This is the age change. Here on change, what is it? Handle city change. On the button click, what is it? On click. Handle register click. One more problem we learned, because this form is a generic, it have default functionality na. How to stop default functionality and do only the current functionality? You need an event argument. We have to use e dot prevent default. We have to do this. Now you can see we are having console. So in the console, we will check what data is coming. We will enter some details, some age and some city, and click on register. It submits that object. It is just submitting an object. Of course, you want to display all the details. You can display all the details individually. Na? It is submitting an object. We need individually details. Suppose you can use like this. I will remove this all. Instead of object, just roughly what we will do, username, and here you can display. So you name. In the next line, age. So we can use age. In the next line, we have city and we can use city. Okay. Then usually what happens according to the details you entered, you click on register, it will get that and show. We can do anything. But once you see this much logic is written, you see lot of logic is written, then you will feel like JavaScript is better than this. Because in JavaScript, you don't need so many events. Just on button click, you can collect data from different elements and you can use them. But in React, when it started, it is having only this approach. We don't have much solution for this. That's the reason this is the problem of handling. Observe carefully. There are so many third parties. I will show you, like npmjs.com. And here we will search some Formic. You can see Formic is a third party, and observe carefully, see what those people tell, what the people say. Formic, you can build forms in React without tears. What does it means? It means that don't cry. We have a solution for you. Why? Because if you ask a React developer to design a form and create interactions, it's very complicated work. It is easy, but it is complicated. Why it is complicated? Because every element needs an event. You have to collect data and use it. But React have only that process of handling data. That's the reason the React way of dealing with forms is not easy. Majority and 100 to 100% in every project, we depend on third party. By using third party, we can create the forms and interact with the forms in a easy way. And if you know the third party, you will feel third party of React is more better than your JavaScript. But it has so many things to understand. I will show you. First important point is what is problem in directly dealing with form in our React. You saw the problem now. Now we will see how we can handle these issues, right? Let's see. So first important, what is the point about form is form provides an UI user interface for interacting with the data. Form provides an UI for interacting with the data. It handles CRUD operations like querying, inserting, updating, and deleting. CRUD operations. Handling a form using React native techniques. Handling a form using React native techniques is always complex. Is always complex. So it requires a lot of two-way binding techniques to configure. It requires a lot of two-way binding techniques to configure. And you know that two-way binding means requires every element requires a on change. On change event. Every element requires on change event. So handling interaction is complex. They have introduced some new concepts in React 19, which I will explain after understanding the third party. What's new they are trying and how they can help, but they also have some limitations. So we are going to see what is newly added into React also, what they are trying to do in React 19 and how they want to solve, but still developers are not satisfied with all those approaches. So we can manage by using third party. Let's see how to manage third party. So React projects use various third party services. 1 second, I will be back. Okay. So let's see what are these third party services. We have so many, like Formic is a service. So we have React Hook Form is one service. So we have Telerik forms like this. Several majority of high level projects and companies use these three very much. The Formic library, Hook Form library, and Telerik forms. I will show you one library. I will explain another library, and some you have to explore by yourself. I will give just idea about them. You need to handle them, right? So React third party services for forms, we are having so many. Let's see how they will work. Means collecting data from form and handling the data, later saving in database and all we will design. Collecting data from form validations, how we can simplify this instead of writing so much, how we can simplify. Let's see. First, today we will see how to use Formic library. We will see how to use a Formic library. We will see how to use this Formic third-party library. So what is the specialty about this third-party library is it provides predefined methods. It provides predefined methods and events for handling forms in React. It provides predefined methods and events for handling forms. Ready-made methods and events are present. So it uses use Formic hook. It uses use Formic hook to configure a form. It uses use Formic hook to configure a form. So you can bind with any form and interact with the form data. You can bind with any form and interact with the form data. So Formic library will provide some predefined methods. By using those methods, you can easily design and interact with the form. Let's see how it works. What are the options in this? It have more features. So it can integrate various validation services and functions. It can integrate various validation services and functions. Different validation services and functions it can integrate. So what is advantage of this is we can create a form without mistakes, without any errors. That means it allows to design a form that can handle contradictory data. Contradictory data means the data which we are not expecting and somebody is sending such information. We'll see validation separately, we will see. How this library works, let's see one concept. It has so many more features. One by one, we will see that. First step is install Formic for project. You have to just run the command npm install Formic. You have to install Formic for project. You need to import use Formic from, you have to import use Formic from Formic library. So import use Formic from Formic. Okay. After that, you have to configure a form. You have to configure a form using use Formic hook. We need to design a form using use Formic hook. How to configure the form is let Formic. You can use any let const, anything. What is the difference, but mostly once we initialize, if you don't want to modify, then always use const. So const Formic is equal to use Formic. This use Formic have some set of attributes. It have some options. What are the options it is having? Initial values. Initial values. Initial values. Actually, what initial values? I will tell you, I will explain. It is having initial values. It is having on validate, validate. Validate refers to a function. Validation schema. Schema uses an object. On submit. So it is a function. And enable reinitialize. It is a Boolean, true, false. That is how we design a form. Formic have initial values, validate, validation schema, on submit, enable, reinitialize. Actually, initial values. What is this initial values is? Initial values refer to the fields. It refers to the fields that map to form fields. Initial value refer to the fields that map to form fields. That means inside form, what are the fields you need to handle? Those you have to define as what? Initial values. We have to define them as initial values. Validate is nothing but validate uses a function that defines custom validations. Custom validations means you write your own validation. We can write our own validations. Validation schema is used to configure a predefined validation service. We can set a ready-made validation service. A predefined validation service. We can write our own validations using validate. We can use ready-made validation services using validation schema. And on submit, refers to a function that submits form data to server. That submits form data to server. Enable reinitialize is used to enable two-way binding. It is used to enable two-way binding. Enable or disable. Because it's a Boolean, we can have true or false. So here some more work we have to do. So while designing a form using Formic, these are the key points. Let's do up to this first. So I will clean up all these logic, including declaration also. I will remove on change that we written. Okay. First step, I'm not giving the previous code because that is the old approach. We don't follow that regularly. If you are dealing with only 1-2 elements, you can try that. That is the old approach. But let's do one thing. I will copy this. I will give you this as an example. So without library, how we can handle. This is example without library. So without library, how to handle form demo.what.js. I just given that for your understanding sake, roughly, right? Now with library, let's see how we can make it simple. So first, let's delete all this now. Only the form is required. All events and everything are removed. Just empty form is present as of now. We just have a empty form. Register click also we have to remove. Okay, a simple empty form is present. Now we need to collect the data and use it. As of now, we don't have any logic for that. Okay, let's do this. First step, open terminal and install the library. What is the library? npm install which one? Formic, and save. I am installing the library. Save flag is regularly used everywhere. Okay, after installing, now here we need to import. I don't need this state also, just import use formic from formic. You have to import use formic from formic. After that, we have to create a form. So constant, what is it? Formic is equal to use formic. It uses options, initial values. Initial values refers to what data you are dealing with. So what is the data in the form you want to handle here? So what is the data you need to handle? One is what? Username. What is its default value? String, empty string. What is another one? Age. It is number. Another one, city. That is an string. That is initial value. As of now, we will not see validation. Validation we will see later. First, simple form. Now we need to collect the data from this and we need to submit. So it have a default on submit. On submit uses a function. This function will collect the user details. Actually, it will collect the form values, all the user details. That means you field name value. And just what we have to do is we have to use console log. I want to send the user detail. Actually, here we will write logic for saving into API, posting the data to API, updating data into API. That logic we will do here. Next level, we are doing that. So initially, this enough collecting the data and submitting. Now, that's enough to design a form. Now, what we have to do is these fields need to be attached to the form elements now. So how to attach them? First, make sure that every form element have a name. It is compulsory. This name should match with the field name you defined. What is the field name? Username. This name is age. And you already learnt in HTML that a form cannot submit the data of any element if it doesn't have a name. No? So every form element must have a name. So here we have a name. What is the name? City. So what is the next point here is, oh, so what is the next point here? Number 4. So what is the next point is make sure that every form element have a reference name that maps to formic initial values. That maps to formic initial values. Make sure that every form element have a reference name. So syntactic like input type text name is equal to username like this. Just rough point I given. Now, how Formic can collect the data from this element and attach it to this field. How it can collect is generally we need to write our own on change event na? But Formic have a ready-made on change event. Formic provides handle change. Formic provides handle change, which is a default event designed to collect data from form element. Formic provides handle change, which is a default event designed to collect data from element. So what you have to do is we have to just write input type is text, name is username. On change, we have to just use formic dot handle change. We have to use formic dot handle change. So have you written this event? We haven't written this event. Formic is already having it. If you attach that event, what this event is going to do, automatically collect the data from the name, username, and it will store in the memory. That means it is going to handle the data coming from this element. Previously, what we done, we written this our own event. We written a function e dot target dot value we stored in a state, but now there is ready-made event. You have to just attach. So see what to do now. Go to every element and attach on change. What it is? Formic dot handle change. Here also on change. Formic dot handle change. Here also on change. Formic dot handle change. So handle change. Okay. And you don't need to write that event. It is already present. Now, one more we have to do. Form have to collect the data on submit. Na? Form uses, what is that event? On submit. It uses formic have handle submit also. On button click collecting the data, it is already designed. You have to just use. That's it. You see now what will happen. I will enter the data here. I'm entering the data. I'm selecting some city and click on register and it is submitting the data. It is collecting the data and submitting field name, value. And very important, it is showing some warning saying that in form there is a button, its type is not mentioned. That is a general problem. You mentioned button, but button requires a type. Na? If you want to submit, then button type submit should be there. Huh? Actually, default type is submit, but in React, it is mandatory to mention. How many button types will be there? 3 button types: button type submit, button type reset, and button type button. In HTML, we have 3 button types. Okay. So if you mention the submit, now no problem. You enter some data and you just register. It is going to collect the data. It is more simple. That means any field you may have. For example, see, suppose I'm adding another field, gender, it's a string. And I'm adding here gender field. choose gender, and we are using an input type as radio. Name is gender, and here on change, formic dot handle change. This is male. Similarly, I have another that is female. So, and this needs a value. The value of this is male and value of this is female. You know that when you learned HTML, if radios and checkboxes don't have value, what they will submit? If radios and checkboxes don't have a value, they submit on as value, on. In a HTML form, if radios and checkboxes are not defined with any value, by default, they submit on as a value. That's a very basic HTML. That means, suppose you see, you learned this in HTML actually. In HTML, when you design a form, first point is suppose user name, and we given one text box, input type is text, and we have a button submit. Actually, if the element is not having a name, observe we entered some name and submit. Now form cannot submit the data. You can see it's not submitting, empty query. Why? Because what is the basic rule? Every form element must have a name. And one more important, suppose I'm using gender and input type is radio, and it is having a name gender and male, and it is having another is female, and I don't mention any value. I don't mention any value. See what will happen if you are not mentioning any value. You entered something, you selected male or female, and you click on submit. It will submit on as value on. That is default nature of HTML. So it is mandatory that every radio and checkbox must have a value. Otherwise it submits on as value. That's general thing. So we are giving here a name and value. That's it. Now see, user can select here, user can enter the details, select city and select a gender. You can choose any gender and submit. It will get that and it will show. Collecting data from any element is simple. Later you will save in database and do all the other actions, but it is simple. You can easily manage by using this. So what is one more thing you have to do? Make sure that form is binded with on submit, right? Another event. Formic provides handle submit. So Formic provides handle submit, which is a default event used to collect the form data when submitted to server. Formic provides handle submit. So it is defined to form. For form, we have to write on submit is equal to formic dot handle submit. We have to do this. This is collecting data from form. So we can see here, I will copy this example now. And in this example, we don't need to declare any state. We just need to configure one formic and what are the fields. On submit, we have to collect the data and use. And observe here, we need to just attach ready-made events. We need to just attach the events, rest of work it will take care. That's the reason third-party services are better when compared to directly dealing with the form. You already saw directly how to handle. Means for every element on change you have to write, on change you have to collect, and you have to store in some reference. On submit you have to write, and here I don't need to write even prevent default. I don't need to write even prevent default. Automatically it will prevent default because on submit is written with it. Already everything is written. You saw na, when I am submitting the data, the submitted data is not displayed. It is not displayed in the URL. Na? That means it is preventing default also. Everything is written, just you have to use it. This is one point about form. I will give this example. What is it? Form demo.jsx. I will copy this example. Now in this, we created a simple form. We collected the data from the form and we are using. We will use different type of elements in next level. Date time pickers or sliders. Already we used slider in EMI calculator. Na? Similar things we can try here later. First point, how you design a form, how do we collect the data from the form and how to submit. Now, very major is in the formic, we need to understand validation. Next important, we have to understand formic validation. Next, very important while designing the form is validation. What is actually validation? What is the concept of validation is? Validation is the process of verifying user input. It is the process of verifying user input. So when user inputs the data into our form, we have to verify the data. Why we need to verify the user input data? Because validation is required to ensure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. Validation is required to make sure that contradictory and unauthorized data is not get stored into database. Contradictory means we are expecting one data type and they are sending some another type. That means the type of data is not matching. The type of data is not matching. Unauthorized means we are expecting a limited data and they are crossing the limit. Then that is called as what? Unauthorized. Any contradictory data or unauthorized data we should not allow. We have to stop that. What is problem in JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. So lot of validations required. Because you learn that even you have to verify whether the input is a number or not. because we don't have any integer type or number type or decimal type of data types built in here. So validation is required. Here two techniques are there. You write your own validation. Of course, sometimes we have to write. For example, you learned a validation in HTML called required. Am I right? To which field you can attach that required, to which element you can use required. Can I use for text box? Can I use for number? You know, text box have a required attribute, na? Right? Where I can use it, where I can use required and it will verify. Can I use for text box? Yes. Can I use for password? Yes. Can I use for email URL? Yes. Can I use for drop down? Drop down. We cannot use for drop down. Can I use for checkbox? No. That means required is just verifying whether a string is entered or not. You cannot use for drop downs. You cannot use for radios. You cannot use for checkbox. Then how you verify whether a checkbox selected or not? Huh? How to validate whether a checkbox is selected or not? You have to manually write the logic. You have to verify the checked attribute. Na? If checked is true, it is selected. If it is false, it is not. That means every validation is not possible with built-in. We have to write lot of manual validations. We have to write lot of manual validations. So technically, what is the facility of Formic? It will provide two techniques. You can use ready-made validations or you can write your own validation. So we will see both techniques. So how you can configure custom validations or use predefined validation services. You can use custom validations or predefined validation services. First, we will see custom validation. How the custom validation works. So what is custom validation is you have to write your own validations, everything. You need to define your own validation. Let's see how we can define our own validation. So what we are doing is, see, suppose what is the requirement is without entering username, if anybody clicks register, it should not register. As of now, I am entering age. I am not entering username. I am selecting city. I am selecting gender. Name is not entered and I register. It is allowing. It is allowing and it is submitting empty, but I should not allow. I want some restriction for that. So let's see how to write here. First, what we have to do is we have to write our own function. Validate user is a function. What this function? This is our own function. This function will collect the form data. It is going to collect the form data. Form data means all the fields in the form. What are the fields in the form? Username, age, gender and all. So it is going to collect user details. Understood? This user details is an object which will collect the form fields. Username, age, all those fields it will collect. And after that, it will have an errors object and it will return that errors object. So what a validation function will do is it will collect the data, find out what are the problems in the data and report those problems. As of now, which error it should handle is user name, empty. It can handle age, it can handle city, it can handle gender. Why all are string? Because these are error messages. Error messages. Username error message, age error message, all the error messages are string type. How many error messages you need, you have to define them. Those errors are returned by this function, which function? Validate user. And remember, when you are submitting, this formic have to use validate. It should validate by using validate user function. Understood? That means when I click on submit, what will happen? When I click on submit, it will collect the user details. Am I right? And it will pass that user details into this validate function. Those user details are passed into validate function. Validate function will verify. If they are successful, then it will submit them using console log. Understood? That means what is going to happen here is, so what is going to happen here is when you submit the form, these data from the form are collected and this data is passed into the validate user function. This function will collect the data. It will verify if there are any problems, it will return. If validation is passed, then only this will happen. Understood? That means if there are no errors, we don't have any problems, then it will submit. That I will show you how we do that. But first point is how to verify. How do we verify? Let's see how we can verify here is just write the logic. So you have to write a condition. What is it? If user details is an object, it have a field called what? Username dot length is equal to 0. What does it means? That means that username field is empty na, right? Then what should happen is we have to use errors dot username. We have to display a message called username required. Understood? We can write more logic else. I am writing if it is not 0, if if user details dot username dot length is less than 4, am I right? Then errors dot username, it will have a message name too short, am I right? Otherwise, if it is more than the 4 length, then errors dot username, we will put an empty message. Don't show any message. You can write as many conditions as you want. I'm just writing the condition for verifying whether value is there or the value is between value is less than 4. If it is less than 4, it says name too short. If it is not there, it says required. We can write lot of conditions. Now it is ready. Where to display this error message? Error message must be displayed below here. Am I right? I will put a data definition. How to get the error message? We have formic. Formic is now returning errors object. In that errors object, you have a field name. What is it? Username. And I will put this as text danger. And you see now what happens is when I try to submit without entering anything, it will show the message. And I am typing some username here. I am typing some username. It says name too short. If it is minimum 4, it's okay. Otherwise, it says name too short. If I am not entering any data, then it says name required. So everything is working fine, but still not completed. Only one field we written. Similarly, we have to add for every field. You see, register is not working now because we have to write for all the fields validation. If valid, then what to do, you have to tell. So initially, what is the approach here? Custom validation. How do we write the custom validation? See the points here. First point, you can write explicit explicit validations by using various JavaScript properties and methods. Formic can use your custom functions to validate the form field. Formic can use your custom functions to validate the form field. So how? First point, write a function. Write a function that collects form data, verifies the data, and return errors. Write a function that collects form data, verifies the data, and return errors. So we need to write a function, validate user. It needs errors object, your validation logic to validate data. Then it should return errors. Right. Next, what we have to do is configure validation function with Formic. How to do? Constant Formic is equal to use Formic. In that you have initial values and you have validate user. So you write the validation function and attach to Formic. It will take care about everything. It will verify the fields. It will report the problems. Just you have to collect the message and display the error message. How to display error message? You can display error message by using formic dot errors dot field name. we can just access the errors and display the errors. You can write validation for all fields here. Depending on your logic, it works. For example, now see here in this example, age is also required and age must be number. Now tell me how to write the logic first here. What is the first condition? If user details dot what age, age is equal to age dot length is equal to 0. Then what is the errors? Errors dot age is equal to age required. Otherwise, we have to check is it a number or not. How to verify is it a number or not? Is NaN. It is a JavaScript function to verify whether user details dot age. If age is not a number, then errors dot age. Errors dot age. We will display a message. Age must be a number. Am I right? Otherwise, we will put a simple message. Errors dot age is equal to empty. Don't show any message. And we want to display that here below the age. So we will put a data definition. Here we have to access formic dot what errors of age. And we have text danger. And you can see now I'm entering the details. It will show this. And what about this age? Until or unless you enter, you entered some data, it is fine. You entered some it says it must be a number. Otherwise, it is required. You entered some number, that is okay. You are not entering any number, then it says it must be a number. You entered number, that is fine. Now, similarly, you have to write for drop down. How to verify drop down is selected with a city or not? How you verify whether they selected a city or not? Usually what we do is every option will have a value. This value is -1. This value is Delhi. And this value is Hyderabad. What does -1 means? -1 means it is not among the list, because list usually starts with 0. That is just a tradition. You can give any name. Traditionally, we give -1 to tell that this doesn't belong to the list. And how you write the logic now? Here we need to write a condition now. What is that condition? If user details dot which one city is equal to -1, then errors dot city, we should say please select your city. Am I right? And otherwise else we will put errors dot city. So errors dot city, we will put empty message. We can write, we can display the message below the city here in the data definition. We have to say formic dot errors dot what city. And here we need to write text danger. And remember here, if user is not selecting, so user is not selecting the city. Suppose I selected the first one, then it says please select city or some problem. We have, what is it? Errors dot city is equal to -1. -1 is a string, na? Because value is a string, right? Yeah. Now you can see I'm entering here city. I'm not selecting a city. Then it should show that please select your city. And when I select the city, it is going to hide that message. So we can verify whether the city is selected or not. For everything, we have to write the logic manually. So you try for drop these also. How you verify? If because they have value na, if value is empty, that means they are not selected. If not, if they are having a value, that means selected. You can try a message there. This example I will give, but we have more simple concept. Instead of writing form demo.jsx, instead of writing so much manual logic, ready-made validations are there, we can attach them. It is more simple and easy. That we can do by using validation schema. How that works, that we'll see tomorrow. Right, in tomorrow session, we will learn how we can make the validations more simple without writing much logic. Ready-made services are there. We will see that. Okay, right.